Welcome into the Frogs Insider Podcast. Jamie Plunkett here. Melissa Triebwasser will be along shortly. She is joined today by Evan and Matt from Between Two Bears, the Baylor podcast that is part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Republic of Football Network. We are the TCU podcast for the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Republic of Football Network. And the two teams play this week. It is rivalry week. TCU and Baylor getting it on this Saturday at 2:30 on ESPN+. So many people are going to be watching this game. Yes, we're going to talk about the trophy. Yes, we're going to talk about the rivalry name. I think people are being too hard on student government, but I'm going to save that soapbox for a little bit down the road in this show. We got some other stuff for you today, though. We never did a Texas recap, as you might have noticed on the feed, because schedules and life happened sometime. Melissa was flying back from Texas, and it took me approximately 3.5 hours to get my groceries on Sunday night. Shout out to Walmart grocery pickup. And so, because of all that, no Texas recap. I'm going to do a little bit on that game here today before we hop into Baylor and move forward from there. Before we do any of that, though, if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, or if you've been a listener since the first episode, thank you for being here. We really do appreciate you. I mean that sincerely. And if you could, go to wherever you are listening to this podcast, and you should see a little button somewhere to leave a rating or a review. If you would do that, please, that would mean the world to us. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, which that's a growing audience, which is pretty dope, thank you for doing that. Hit the like button on this video. Leave us a comment underneath as well, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We are also on Instagram. We've got a tiki-taki going. You can follow Melissa and I on our personal accounts on Twitter. Anywhere you need to access Frogs Insider, you can access Frogs Insider. We've got it all set up for you. So make sure you're over on socials following us. Make sure you've liked the podcast wherever you get it, and make sure you're checking out the YouTube channel as well. Appreciate you. Shout out to our sponsors. Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel are both incredible organizations. We work with them because we're friends with them. We love them. They do incredible work. They provide quality products to their purchasers, to their patrons of their stores. If you're on the YouTube channel, you see that I've got one of my Home Field hoodies on today. It is the purple old school TCU Horned Frog logo, in honor almost of the little helmets that kind of look a little bit like this head. Yeah, a little bit of that Horned Frog head going on. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can see which one I'm talking about. And I'm going to get into a hoodie rant later as well. Shout out to the TCU campus store. Okay, that should be enough podcast business for now. We're going to talk more about Hell's Half Acre and Home Field later in the show. So let's jump in. Quick Texas recap. The Frogs lose to the Longhorns 29-26. Very close football game. Good second half of football for TCU. I thought it was the best second half of football TCU played this year. You can debate whether or not Texas was trying to slow play a little bit, whether they got conservative. I don't know if that had more to do with game script or with Brooks getting hurt. Jonathan Brooks, their incredible running back, tore his ACL, out for the year, got hurt in the second half of that game. But either way, TCU fell to the Longhorns 29-26. It's just the fourth time TCU has lost to the Longhorns since joining the Big 12. So the Frogs finish their time in the Big 12 with Texas with an 8-4 record, which is not bad. Not too shabby at all. I think it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, maybe if they beat Baylor, this will change. I think that's the best record TCU has against any Big 12 school they've been in the conference with over this stretch. I'll need to double check that, but I'm fairly sure that that's right. They have more wins against Texas than they do any other program in the Big 12 since joining. Again, Baylor could be different if they win this weekend, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. Bad first half for the Frogs. They're down 26-6 at halftime. It was 13-6 until the last 4 minutes or so of the second quarter. A couple bad turnovers gave Texas an opportunity to stretch their lead out before the break a little bit. But TCU came out after halftime, folks, and looked very, very good. Defensively, they were sound. They were a little bit more aggressive than we've seen them in previous games. The offense did a good enough job of protecting Josh Hoover so that he could get the ball out, primarily to Savion Williams, who set single-game career highs in receptions and receiving yards with 11 catches for 164 yards. He also had a big time touchdown late in that game to help TCU get to within a field goal. And if, my money is on, if TCU gets that third down stop near the end of that game, they're at least going to be able to get into field goal range. They were moving the ball well on offense that whole game. Griffin Kell had 2 long field goals, including a 56-yarder in the first quarter of that game. Things were starting to build in the right direction for TCU. They just kind of ran out of time, gave up a big 3rd and 12 conversion to a pass to A.D. Mitchell. He went up and made a play. You can't really be too upset. And that ended up sealing the game for Texas there. So that's the 4th one-score loss for TCU this season. They are obviously 0-4 in those games. They had 7 one-score games in 2022, and they went 6-1 in those games. So there has obviously been a little bit of a change in luck in some of the bounces for TCU this year. Plus, they lost some guys that covered up some of the mistakes, right? They lost some guys that could ad-lib in key moments and make up for broken assignments or broken blocking or whatever it might have been. And that's just not the case this year, and we see that kind of come up and hurt the Frogs once again against UT. But, that was a better second half than I think I'd seen them play all year. You could say the third quarter against Texas Tech was probably close, but the way they showed up in the fourth quarter of that game almost negated what they did in the third quarter against Tech. So, I think it was overall a decent effort from TCU. Obviously, on the losing side is not something you want to be, but I think I saw for the first time what the coaches saw in some of these guys that they had been touting in the fall. Saying that they had a deep team, saying that they had a lot of talent on this team. I think I saw some of that really come out in the second half against Texas, and that was good to see. Interior offensive line is still a problem right now. It's still a problem right now. Colton Deary, John Lands, and Willis Patrick, none of them had above a 50 on PFF in pass blocking grades on Saturday night, and that's just not going to get it done. Especially with a freshman quarterback out there, that's just not going to get it done. Couldn't establish the run as much as they wanted to. Sonny Dykes talked about that a little bit in midweek. He talked a lot in midweek. If you haven't seen his midweek press conference from this past Tuesday, I would encourage you to go back and look at that and watch that. He talked a lot about the defensive scheme challenges that they've faced. He talked a lot about the struggles on offense and specifically kind of what they've been tracking and what's been going poorly for them this year. And I thought he did an incredibly good and candid job of laying out some of TCU's issues on both sides of the football. So go check that out. That's over at the Frogs Insider YouTube channel. You can watch the whole thing right there. It's about 28 minutes. He talked for a long time on Tuesday. But let's move forward because we got a little bit more news before we get into TCU and Baylor this morning. Hoops. We have undefeated hoops teams across the board at TCU. Men's are 3-0 after an 88-55 win over UT Rio Grande Valley on Tuesday night, and then the women moved to 4-0 after a win over Incarnate Word during a lunchtime matinee on Wednesday. That was field trip day, so there were tons of elementary schools from the ISDs all over, and a lot of little kids making a lot of loud noise. I know the ladies of TCU basketball really enjoyed having all those kiddos there. Pretty fun, high energy, and that's not the only thing that's happening for women's basketball right now. Haley Cavinder has committed. Melissa and I are going to talk more about hoops and stuff when we get back together on the next weekend episode. But I do want to make a note that Haley Cavinder has signed with TCU. She is officially a Horned Frog, so the commitment post went crazy. I think that was on Monday. And now she has officially signed her NLI, her letter of intent, so she is a Horned Frog, which means that the school can talk about her, Coach Campbell can talk about her, and he did so on Wednesday afternoon. And I thought it was really impressive the way that he framed her commitment to TCU, because I think the first question he got was about her social media presence, right? And everybody knows who Haley Cavinder is, who her twin Hannah is, from their TikTok presence. They have massive social presences on Instagram as well. They've created a couple businesses. They've worked with Jake Paul and the WWE, and they've got a podcast. They do like better picks and stuff, and they have successfully created a social media presence that is a really good income stream for them, which is nice because from an NIL perspective, she's kind of taken care of with all of the business stuff that she's got going on. But that also, I think, overshadows, and Coach Campbell got into this a little bit on Wednesday, that overshadows her as a basketball player. And Haley Cavinder is a very good basketball player. You look at who Campbell brought in the portal last cycle, right when he got on campus. He got Sedona Prince, who was a proven commodity at Oregon. He got one of the best point guards in the country in Jaden Owens. He got one of the best sharpshooter three-point shooters in the country from Arizona in Madison Connor. He got another shooter in Una Jovanovic, who from Cal State Fullerton, who's still finding her way a little bit through the first 4 games, but once she starts clicking, you're going to see the real kind of 4 out, 1 in that Matt Campbell wants to run for this team. He hit the portal really hard and got a lot of incredible talent out of it. And he did that because he's got this vision for the program, how to rebuild a program. He's got a character kind of commitment that he's got to finding the right people for this program. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit on Wednesday for something that I'm writing that should be out either Thursday or Friday, about his vision for the program and how he's been able to convince some of these high visibility, really kind of outside the game impactful people to commit to coming and playing for him, right? Because between Haley Cavinder, Sedona Prince, and Jaden Owens, they have over 1 million combined followers on Instagram. Haley Cavinder has like 4.5 million followers on TikTok by herself, right? And that puts a lot of eyeballs on your product, and so you want to have a good product, and which that means that these women also have to be really good basketball players, and they are. So back to the Haley Cavinder, and that she was second team All ACC for Miami last year. She led Miami in scoring. She led them in assists. She led them in minutes played. She shot 40% from three-point range for the Hurricanes last year as she helped lead them to the Elite Eight. It was the first Elite Eight in program history. So for all of the conversation about her social presence or any of the other stuff, she's a hooper, right? Like, she's a good basketball player, and she should come in next year and be able to run the point for Matt Campbell's offense and do it successfully. I personally am very excited about having 2 people who can shoot the 3 at the rate that Cavinder and Madison Connor can. That's something that I don't think either hoops team has really seen or in a long time, is 2 shooters at the same time who were that legit at hitting and knocking down threes. So it's a great thing for Mark Campbell. It's a great thing for women's basketball that Haley Cavinder is going to be here. He did indicate that this is a next year thing, which is what we all suspected. So 24-25 season, which makes sense because the season has already started. And in order for her to get in and play now, she'd need an NCAA waiver. Because this would technically be her second transfer, I don't think she would get it. And so she's going to come in next year and be, I think the expectation is that she's going to be a starting point guard, which means she's going to be filling in for the role Jaden Owens is playing this year. And, that means that there's an opportunity, depending on how this season goes, for Campbell and his team to really kind of just pick up the ball and keep the momentum rolling after what has been a successful first 4 games for his team. So big time things are happening for women's hoops. If you haven't been paying attention to women's hoops to this point, I would encourage you to start doing so now. It's really kind of a fun environment. It's got a lot of potential, and I think Campbell's got this thing moving in the right direction. So that's all kind of exciting. And I posted a clip of him talking about Haley Cavinder on socials the other day, so make sure that you get in there and check that out as well. Okay, let's jump in to TCU-Baylor. I've got some mailbag questions about the Blue Bonnet battle, so we're going to table all of that for now, and we're just going to get in to the advanced stats preview. Obviously, if you know Parker Fleming at Stats of War, longtime friend of the podcast, does incredible work from an advanced stats aspect covering college football. And if you go and you see his advanced stats preview for TCU-Baylor, you can kind of start to understand why this game opened as TCU minus 14. 14-point favorite when they've had the year that they've had. Because Baylor's defense is like on a historically bad pace, which is shocking because Dave Aranda is a great defensive mind, and I still really like Dave Aranda. For the record, just as a side note here, I don't think he's going to get the sack at Baylor yet. I don't think he's out at Baylor after this season. I think he's got another year. I know that the kind of general public consensus is that he should be gone. I don't think he's gone after this year. I think we see a lot of staff changes over there and that he gets one more shot at it next year. But Baylor's defense is not good. They are 111th in EPA per pass. They are 72nd in EPA per rush. They are 104th in the country at points per Eckel, which, if you remember, Eckel tracks how frequently you are creating scoring opportunities for your team based on how successful your drives are. Points per Eckel is how many points you score per quality drive. So when you get a scoring opportunity, are you taking advantage of it? Baylor is very good at letting teams take advantage of their scoring opportunities. That has been a weak point for TCU's offense this season. They have not been able to take advantage of their scoring opportunities. They are 17th in the country in Eckel rate, which means they're 17th best in the country in generating scoring opportunities and putting together quality drives. They are 91st in the country in turning those drives into points. And so this may be an opportunity late in the season for TCU to correct some of the challenges that they've faced all year in converting drives into points. That would be really nice. It would be really nice to see. Some other things to note about Baylor's defense. They're 117th in the country in third and fourth down success. They're letting teams convert, their stop rate is just 26% on third and fourth down. That's not great. TCU is 15th in the country in third and fourth down success. So there's another opportunity maybe for TCU's offense to really kind of get things rolling, get some points on the board early. Meanwhile, offensively for Baylor, they've struggled this year. Obviously, they dealt with quarterback injuries earlier in the year. They've dealt with some other injuries as well. Things have just not gone well in Waco this season for the Bears. Kind of a middling offense. 64th in EPA per pass. 63rd in EPA per pass. 64th in EPA per rush. 53rd in the country in Eckel rate. And an abysmal, a dead last in Division I football, 130th in converting their scoring opportunities into points. 2.51 points per Eckel drive. That is less than a field goal per scoring opportunity. That is bad. That is very, very bad. They don't run the ball as much as you would anticipate for a team that is this bad. They do like to throw the football a lot, but it really just hasn't worked out for them. That's a kind of a very quick little advanced stats preview there. TCU should win this football game. TCU needs to win this football game to continue to have an opportunity to stay bowl eligible. But anything can happen in a rivalry game, and who knows? Baylor almost rose up and got TCU last year. They needed an absolute miracle of a field goal late to get that win, and we'll see what happens this year when Baylor comes to town. But I do think TCU ends up coming away with the win. If you see Parker's advanced stats preview, you'll see that his projection is 32-19-ish. TCU's got about an 83% chance to win this game. And know that that's not like a true score prediction from him when you see those charts. That's more of a, hey, when teams that have these profiles match up, kind of what is the probable outcome. So this isn't really like a score predictor. This definitely isn't gambling advice or anything like that for those of you who may be wanting to wager on this game. But this is a really nice capture of what these teams have done to this point and how they stack up against each other. Which, if you look at this, pretty clearly gives TCU the edge. To continue this conversation, though, we are going to go to Melissa Triebwasser. She sits down with Evan and Matt over at Between Two Bears, Dave Campbell's Baylor podcast, and they continue the Baylor and TCU preview over there.
Folks, welcome to another very special episode of the Frogs Insider podcast. Maybe another collaborative episode, but this time we are featuring our friends, our countrymen, our protected rivals, the protected rivals, the harbinger of the Bluebonnet battle. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. We are joined by Evan and Matt from Between Two Bears. This is a momentous occasion, folks. And yeah, it's good, bad,
folks,
ugly, indifferent. It's happening, which is the same thing you could say about this newly launched and rebranded rivalry between TCU and Baylor. Whether you like it or not, it's happening. So I guess we might as well move forward with what's going on. Gentlemen, how are you guys?
Been better.
I'm pissed off, Melissa. I'm pissed off. Yeah. Villanova was my, for sure, sixth leg of my college basketball parlay this evening, and they blew it against Penn, and that's what we're here to talk about, right?
You know what? Those poor, souls from Penn that just don't get a lot of breaks in life and don't have many opportunities. Let them have this win. Let them have this win. This is the time. Listen, we could be all kind of like salty and pissed off about a lot of things, but let's start with the most obvious one. And that's the fact that it's no longer going to be known as the Revivalry. Like, that's the worst part of this football season for both Baylor and TCU fans. Yes?
Yes.
Maybe to the media elite.
Well, outside of the media elite, what do you guys think of the name?
It's off. I don't associate bluebonnets with Waco or Fort Worth.
I took a lot of bluebonnet pictures in Waco. I got a picture in my house right now of me and some bluebonnets in Waco. Easter.
Just you. Just me laying on your side in the bluebonnet.
Paint me like one of your French bluebonnets.
Exactly.
Were you ever told that it was illegal to pick bluebonnets, or was that just something that happened at my school? Is that true? What's the deal there?
I have no idea.
I think it's true. I think it's much like a California poppy and that it's a protected species. And so you're not allowed to harvest it without proper governmental. I think that's what now I could also be completely pulling that out of my rear end. It's possible, but I was afraid to touch them. I'll say that.
At Hewitt Elementary in 2002, we were weeding. We pulled those out. I must have had 50 in my backpack at one time.
Oh, I mean, that's the kind of thing I expect.
There is no law that prohibits picking bluebonnets in Texas.
Not anymore.
Go crazy. Go crazy.
Folks, if you don't learn anything about either football team that you're interested in listening to, at least you know you can now harvest all the bluebonnets that you would like. I think we fill the trophy next year with real bluebonnets that we have to pick in the spring and then are dead by November when this game is played.
No, see, you're validating this way too much.
I am.
You are.
Here's my thing, and the irony of this was not lost on me, but Sonny Dykes on the press conference this morning that I attended via Zoom mentioned how important it was to protect these long-standing rivalries while he was simultaneously giving the double birds to SMU, who TCU is no longer going to play, which is their oldest rival. And I do think having a trophy for these games is cool and fun and unique. I don't know if I can get behind creating a trophy in 2023 and forcing it and thrusting it upon us ahead of the next round of Big 12 expansion. I guess that's maybe my issue with it.
And it's not even a cool trophy. No. There's no spikes on it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a big civil conflict energy,
Yes. Yeah. When Sonny was talking about like the little brown jug and Paul Bunyan's axe, and then they throw us the Bluebonnet Battle Trophy, which I will mention was created by a Baylor graduate. So we could at least I'm happily to crap on it. I would probably try to justify it if it was TCU guy. But yeah, it's just kind of generic. It looks like a 2023,
It looks
TCU Baylor's gone woke.
It looks like if you go to a cemetery and there was like a house, how people make like house divided T-shirts.
Yeah.
If there was like a house divided couple, this is like what would be like on their shared tombstone.
Okay, I get that.
This is what it would look like.
Yeah, and honestly, like you could do worse. Let's talk really quickly while we're still on this thread. So one of the people. So this was hilarious to me. Mac Rhodes on the call. Sonny Dykes on the call. Dave Aranda on the call. Jeremiah Donati had the Lincoln Riley flu, not on the call. I was proud of my guy, ADJD. I was proud of him for ducking out and bowing out of that one. But my big question for you guys is, and I know the answer, is Dave Aranda okay? Because that guy is the most positive outlook, happy-go-lucky. He looked sad. And I'm really concerned about him because he looked sad.
He's very much, I don't know how much Parks and Rec both of you have watched, but
Yes.
he's very much like who's the guy who gets
Jerry?
of course
Not Jerry.
not Jerry. He's the really positive one. Who am I thinking of?
Oh, Chris.
Yes, he's very much like a Chris Traeger. Like
Yes.
if he gets a little sick, he gets a lot sick, you know?
Okay.
So I think he's really going through. I think we're gonna get like a Dave Aranda claymation in a few weeks once he has more time on his hands.
Oh,
like,
okay.
could an unemployed
Y'all.
coach make this? That's what we're gonna be seeing from him in a few weeks.
So that kind of brings my next question is, how hot is that seat? Because Dave Aranda felt like a home run hire when he was brought in, and it feels like it. And clearly at this point, I think you can say it just really hasn't worked. But it also, like, there's a big buyout there, right? We don't really know because it's private school. And who else are you going to go get? Like, do you think this seat is hot? And I mean, putting aside, obviously everyone agrees Dave Aranda is one of the best people in college football. He's a wonderful human being, just a delightful person. But is it time for Baylor to move on and say the experiment has failed?
I think so. I think you have to like win, recruit, or develop. You got to pick 2 out of the 3. And right now he's picking 0 out of the 3 options. And you can be nice. Yeah. I'm nice, but I can't coach football either, apparently. You know? What's he doing? Matt, what do you think? What's he doing out there?
Like, when you choose to make your public persona the very introspective, self-aware, continuous improvement, like all the corporate buzzwords that you would want in like a manager at work. Like, I would love to work for Dave Aranda. That'd be great. But this isn't like a consulting firm, right? This is the most visible, like, non-NFL job type in America. And if you choose to make that your public persona, boy howdy, you better look smart. Even if you lose, you better look smart. And that's the thing. Like, none of this has looked smart. Yes, it's looked bad, but it's possible for it to also look smart. Like, decisions are good and the process is good, but none of it looks good, right? And if you're going to be the, hey, we're going to keep working and be positive thing, that like a pseudo Matt Rule shtick, well, that's collapsed as well. I listened to the like post-game radio show, the official post-game radio show.
Don't do that.
I don't know, 3-4 times a season, maybe, usually after a big win to continue the good feelings. Well, I decided to just delve into the depths of feeling bad, and I listened to it this week, and it was crushing. Dave Aranda came on, he was like, yeah, this is the lowest we can go. Like, this is the lowest I can feel. This is pretty low. It's going to leave scar tissue. Like, he sounded like a pop emo band. Like, it was depressing.
If he comes out with the Jimmy Butler hair ahead of the TCU game, I'm going to be so worried.
Taking back Sunday,
right? Yeah, taking back Sunday.
Good.
That's
That was good.
So if he's broken, imagine what the rest of the staff feels like, and imagine what the rest of the players feel like. And I'm not doing this to like drum up pity or even sympathy or empathy here. It's just, yeah, it's bad. Like, it's really bad. There's absolutely going to be a coaching change. I don't know if that's going to be offensive coach side of things, or if it's going to be the whole kit and caboodle, but there is something that is going to change.
The good news is not that far from Waco, there is a newly unemployed head football coach that has national championship resume that you can bring in for dirt cheap, because he's getting $76 million from Texas A&M. I don't know if Jimbo's the move, but Jimbo's not the move, right?
I'd take Jimbo. Matt, would you take Jimbo?
Don't tell anybody. Don't let this go
I'd
public,
take Jimbo.
Yeah, hey, this is just between the 3 of us. Jimbo would be a home run for Baylor.
Yeah.
Jimbo going into the new Big 12, like the new Big 12. That's what we have to call it now, right?
Might be
Jimbo or Dabo. I'll take either. Give me either.
Dabo would fit right. Dabo's born to coach at Baylor, but like Dabo's born to coach at Baylor when he's like at the end of his coaching career. Like that's going to be 78-year-old Dabo on the sidelines.
Depending on what happens against UNC this weekend, look, we might be getting pretty close.
Hey,
Dabo seems like he was more interested in Waco around the 93, 94 range. That seems more his lane.
Yeah. Hey, Dabo can go to Baylor. TCU will take Garrett Riley back. It's a win-win situation.
Everyone wins.
Everyone wins. What, like, I don't want to say like what's wrong with Baylor, but like outside of that incredible like UCF comeback, right? I mean, this team has just looked overmatched in a way that we haven't seen since kind of the end of He Shall Not Be Named era. Like the coverage should not be this bare, right? Like are there deeper issues here, or is this just kind of just from Matt Rule to Dave Aranda that just where's the kind of the fall off been?
Matt?
So to table set here, when I don't have recent success to like immediately remember, if it's outside the purview of my ADHD memory bank here, my expectations for entertainment from a football team is actually pretty low. I don't need you to win 10 games every season. I don't need you to bring in 5 stars. I just need you to look like you know what you're doing and ruin someone else's season every once in a while, right? Like, truly, that's all I need. If the process looks good, if it looks like you know what you're doing, I'm good. It's not just that we haven't won an FBS game at home since literally November of last season. It is the fact that we haven't looked competitive outside of the Utah game. We haven't looked competitive against an FBS team at home. And we haven't looked competitive against a good FBS team on the road since November. And it's just so it's one or multiples of recruiting, coaching decisions, or roster building, right? Like recruiting and roster building, I feel are different things.
Yeah.
Or development, right? Like it's some combination, and you can't say, oh, well, they are doing a good job in this area, because it doesn't necessarily look like we have enough talent. It doesn't necessarily look like we're developing players well enough. It doesn't look, I know for a fact we're not making good coaching decisions on the field. Some of them are truly baffling. And there's nothing that you can hang your hat on except for, oh, we might have a couple players in the secondary.
We got a guy named Dawson who might be good.
Yeah, we have a running back and like maybe 2 defensive backs that are pretty good. What are we doing?
How has the defense been this? I mean, Dave Aranda, I don't think anybody questions his defensive pedigree. Is that just back to, well, yeah, I guess you can now, right? Is that recruiting and development, or is this a scheme issue as well?
I think
look at the talent he had at LSU.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we find out coordinators are just coordinators, you know. We've learned that he can cook when he has multiple NFL players to tell what to do.
Oh, you're gonna go with the Bill Parcells of he needs to be able to shop with the groceries too, right?
Yes, exactly. So thanks for your service. Get out of my community. That's what I think.
You send this kid north and all of a sudden, man.
Exactly. FYI, that 2019 LSU team, they gave up 38 to Vanderbilt, by the way. Just the same amount of points they gave up to Texas. Like, are we sure they were that good? I don't know. That's the part of it. Melissa, you hit it right on the head. That's the part that frustrates me. The defense has never been good outside of having 2 to 3 NFL players. That's truly what it. And they built the entire defense around those 3 players: Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard, and JT Woods. Like, that's what they built the 2021 defense around. So that's the part that frustrates me.
Looking ahead to this toddler slap fight Saturday afternoon, which is what I'm kind of expecting. I know. this game has been relegated to ESPN Plus, and I know that Baylor fans have gotten comfortable with ESPN Plus this year for
It's
football.
bookmarked.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's what we deserve, right? Both of these teams have had success in phases. They've had success in periods of time. They've had success with other coaches, but neither team looks successful. Or I think, Matt, you were kind of alluding to, like, there's reason to think that the right things are being done to build for the future. So, like, are you going to watch Saturday? And if so, what are you going to be watching for?
I won't. I will be in Jackson, Mississippi, hanging with my mom.
Okay.
Instead of this.
Yeah, that's a good priority there.
The Houston game, I swore up and down I wasn't going to watch. I was going out for my birthday celebration that evening. I swore up and down I wasn't going to watch. And I watched the whole thing, except for the part that I listened to on the radio.
Yeah.
It's a sickness. It's a sickness.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I'm swearing up and down I'm not going to watch on Saturday, but I'm going to. And it is going to lead to yet another weekend of my family being miserable because I can't control my sadness after seeing what they put out on the field.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm giving you a virtual hug. I don't know if that's an option. I think I can give you. Let's see what my reactions are. I can just give you a
high
thumbs
five.
up.
Yeah, thumbs up. There you go. Love that.
See what else I got for
you. We've all been there, right? And it's hard because, like, I don't miss TCU games. Like, I'm still watching even when it's bad, even when it's good. I'm still flying out for games on my own dollar and volition. And it's something that when you're tied in, you're tied in tight. I don't know what the spread is. I haven't looked yet. I can't imagine TCU is a huge favorite here. This is
Melissa, I need you to take a guess right now. I will get a live look at it.
A live look. Okay.
It will blow your mind.
As we are recording this on Monday evening, anything more than 5.5 would surprise me.
This morning it was 14.
What?
I was gonna say I'm thinking closer to that 2 touchdown range.
Right now it's 13, and I'm going to hammer TCU again. So
I guess
1 moment.
Yeah, just a second. I guess coming off of the second half against Texas, even though, like, it's for TCU fans, it gave us a lot of hope. The guys were actually playing hard for the most part. The offense finally got some things moving, but my pessimist look says, Texas wasn't trying to do anything in that second half. That was the most impotent play calling Steve Sarkisian could have given, and he did just that. And they protected Quinn Ewers. And then once they unfortunately lost their running back to a torn ACL, then they weren't even trying to move the football. They were just kind of waiting for time to expire, which is what happened. But man, 2 touchdowns. I know Baylor's bad. Like, we can all admit that, like, very bad. To the point now, it's like not even enjoyable for me as a TCU fan to, like, watch that level of suffering. Like, Matt, when you, like, I'm almost tearing up for you. I'm just hurting for you alongside you. But
that's why you're a better person than
I know. I'm not a great person, but I am like a terminal empath. It's pathetic, but it is who I am. But guys, like, we are not taking into account there's a trophy for this game now. And Dave Aranda said it today that the trophy's going to make his guys play harder, and they're all invested and locked in for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard they've been playing for a fake trophy in practice all week. They've been looking really good playing for it.
Yeah, they're ready.
That's what the rumors have been saying.
Yeah. Do you, like, what's the path to Baylor pulling off what I guess we could now call a pretty significant upset?
The path?
Yeah.
We would have to do some blocking and some tackling.
Okay.
First and foremost.
Yeah. Well, we're terrible at tackling too. And we cannot rush the passer. Although we've been okay we were mostly okay against the run against Texas, which I'll take against that running attack.
I think
Aranda said, here's a tweet from Michael Hegg, who writes for the Baylor paper. He says, Aranda said he was blown away by the enthusiasm among both sides of the conversation on a Zoom call today, and that their enthusiastic nature made him fired up. Why? I'm being lied to. Every Sunday or every Saturday after the game and every Monday during his presser, I'm just being lied to over and over and over again. Sorry, I just had to I had to get that out.
No, it's important that you get these things out and talk about them. Otherwise, you're just going to fester inside, and we don't want that for you. You're getting older. You know, we need to protect the ticker. You know, these are all things. These are important. Yeah, I mean, well, that's also funny too, because I'm sure there was a ton of enthusiasm around both student councils, and I will say the kids did seem like super proud and super excited about this, but I have never heard crickets longer on a Zoom call than I did when they asked for questions. And only Matt Gingle was willing to break the seal, which was great, and ask a couple questions. And then Drake Toll did ask about why it wasn't the rivalry, and the canned answer, you knew they were ready for that one. The talking points had been written ahead of time for sure. Man, like this is sad, friends. This is not the inspiring rivalry preview that both of us thought we would have back in August, but I think it is appropriate for the level of enthusiasm around this game. Neither team, I guess, how many wins does Baylor have now? I don't think either of us have a chance to get to 6, right?
We're sitting at 3.
Yeah, I think we're sitting at 3, or no, we have 4. So theoretically, TCU is still playing to get bowl eligible with Baylor, and then at Oklahoma remaining on the schedule. So a little something to play for. It doesn't feel like the Baylor players have quit per se. It just feels like they aren't any good. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's the most depressing part. I think that is honestly the most depressing part. Now, they don't celebrate for each other on the sidelines. I don't think that's necessarily quitting, but damn, everything else except for some of the play on the field leads me to believe they have. I don't know. It's just really stupid. Like I think I said during the Kansas State game, I'm now at the point where I'm worried about putting these kids out on the fields, like you would with like a what was the fake school, Evan, that that ran
Bishop
those
Sycamore.
people?
Yeah, Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore. It feels like a Bishop Sycamore situation every single Saturday. It's fantastic.
No, they had a 4-star player on their team.
and they also had a couple. They had a couple of 30-year-olds, so it was different.
Yeah, exactly.
In our last 2.5 minutes here before my Zoom runs out, and we could start a second one, but I don't want to subject you boys to any more torture than I already have. But if we need to like have a therapy call after this, we certainly can. Just like for wailing and like rending of garments and gnashing of teeth, that's totally fine. Tell us, I want you to give me your 60-second, or make it a 15-second elevator pitch on Baylor football in 2023. How would you describe it? And then where can people find you on social? Because I mean, Evan will be smarter than both of us, Matt, but people may want to just like follow along with us on Twitter or X or whatever else on Saturday afternoon.
Matt, you want to go first?
Okay, I got it. There's a show called What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah,
I started it last night.
There's a character that's an energy vampire that sucks all of the life out of people around him for sustenance. And that's what Baylor football is this season. It is an energy vampire for its fan base, and it has sucked all of the enthusiasm out of it. Basketball's, restoring the feeling a little bit, but that's what it is. You can follow me at Matt is Bear. Very specific life choice, but you could if you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah. It is a choice. It is a decision.
There's another show that's off the air now, but it's called Scrubs, and they made they made a 9th season of it, despite not really needing to have made it, where there's some familiar faces, but it really fucking stinks. So that would be that'd be Baylor's 2023 season, is season 9 of Scrubs, which is fun because we don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
So we just won't talk about the season after it's over, and we'll get a new producer. It'll be good. That's
perfect.
all I got.
That's listen, next time that we talk, I want to talk about Jacoby and Baylor basketball. Because oh my God, I'm obsessed. I'm in love and I hate him so much. I would like him. Please, can we? I'll give you Sonny Dykes, return Kendall Briles. You send Jacoby Walter to TCU.
Then we get 4 years of Desmond Bain.
All right, thank you to Matt and Evan, and to Melissa for that excellent preview. Love hearing from the opponent's perspective every week, and Melissa's just done a tremendous job. of pulling all of that together for us all season long. So shout out to her. Shout out to Evan and Matt for what they're doing. I do want to take a moment at this point to just shout out Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods. Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods has everything you need for game day. They've got the polos, they've got the hats, they've got the long sleeve quarter zips, they've got a couple hoodies that are actually pretty great, some t-shirts as well, koozies, whatever you need to get ready for game day. Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods is your place to go. When you buy at Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods, which is hellshalfacresg.com. When you go to hellshalfacresg.com and make a purchase, you'll see a little opportunity, I think, to make a comment. Tell them that Frogs Insider sent you. They would love to hear that is where they heard about, that is where you heard about them. And that'll help kind of keep this relationship going. So tell them that you heard about them from Frogs Insider. Go get some stuff from Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods today. Meanwhile, if you're watching on the YouTube, I've already mentioned it. I've got the Home Field Apparel hoodie on today. It's not the Big Sky. It is a TCU hoodie. And they've got some cool stuff coming down the road that I can't quite tease just yet, but I'll tease it like that. So keep an eye out for some Home Field Apparel stuff coming soon. Not new merch for TCU, just to clarify. But Home Field Apparel has some of the comfiest hoodies and T-shirts that I've ever had. I'm obviously wearing one right now. You all know, if you've listened before, about my beloved Big Sky hoodie that you can also go and get. It's still available. If you use the code FROGSIN15, FROGSIN15, you will get 15% off of your first purchase of any TCU gear at homefieldapparel.com and 10% off of any subsequent purchase, right? So this is a code that's good forever. It's about to be the holiday season. If you want to get something comfortable for a family member or a friend or a loved one, go to homefieldapparel.com, get them some TCU gear, use the code FROGSIN15 to save yourself some money. Hey, that might even mean that you save enough money to get yourself something from homefieldapparel.com. And wouldn't we all love to have a little bit of home field in our closet this winter, keeping us nice and warm as the world gets a little bit colder outside. Shout out to Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel. Again, we love you guys as sponsors. Very, very thankful that you are sponsoring the show. All right, 3 games that I am watching this week. Obviously, Baylor TCU doesn't count. Some of the other bigger games that everyone is watching won't count. But there is one that is actually a ranked matchup that I'm very intrigued about. And we're going to do these kind of out of order. At 1:30, it's going to be on the Pac-12 network, actually, so I can't watch it. But I'm going to talk about it anyways. Utah and Arizona. 2 teams that are 7-3. Arizona, obviously, and Utah both coming to the Big 12 next season. Both currently ranked in the CFP rankings. Arizona's 17, Utah is 22. Arizona's a 1-point favorite in this game. It's happening in Tucson. And it has been really fun to see this turnaround for the Wildcats this year, because I think they were picked like 2nd or 3rd to last in the Pac-12. Now they're 7-3. They're on like a 4-game winning streak in the conference, and they have a chance to knock off the 2-time defending Pac-12 champion in Utah, who has struggled at times this year offensively, has a lights-out defense as we've known them to have over the years. But Arizona's offense, if they can get some points on the board, I think they've got a good enough defense to kind of hold Utah down here and maybe get a win, move to 8-3 on the season. That's a game that I am definitely going to pay attention to, even if I can't watch it because I don't have the Pac-12 network, which is very silly and dumb. Shout out to the Pac-12 network and the whole Pac-12 for just absolutely farting and falling down. Another game that I am watching this week. It's an interesting slate of games, definitely, this week. But one that I'm kind of paying attention to that's going to be off the radar for a lot of people. 8-2 teams that are matching up in the state of Tennessee this weekend. That game's at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. That's SMU and Memphis. 2 8-2 teams. SMU's an 8.5-point favorite. Their offense has been absolutely steamrolling teams lately. Granted, it's been like Charlotte and North Texas and some of these other teams, but they're absolutely crushing these teams right now. Their defense is playing really well. I'm interested to see how much Memphis can challenge this Mustangs team that is looking to get to 10 wins. That would be an impressive feat for SMU. That would be an impressive feat for Rhett Lashley, whose name is going to come up this offseason in coaching searches. SMU fans just got to get ready, get mentally prepared for that. Does he leave? I don't know. I don't think he does. But we'll see. We'll see. SMU Memphis is another one that I am definitely paying attention to this week. And then the last game that I am paying attention to this week that I'm very interested to see the outcome of is a game that's happening on Saturday night. It is Texas and Iowa State. 7 o'clock on Fox. UT is 9-1. They're 7th in the country. Iowa State is 6-4. And I'm a little nervous about this one. Texas is a 7.5 point favorite. Here's why I'm nervous, though. Everything says that Iowa State pulls off the upset in this game. Everything says. Night game in Ames. They have a history of upsetting teams that are on track for either the BCS or the CFP. They're rolling right now. They've looked really, really good the last few weeks. Matt Campbell has this thing turned around. Talk about a guy who's kind of resurrected his coaching search rumor mill chances. Matt Campbell's got to be at the top of that list this year. I was so wrong about him being done. Brooks out for UT. Like, all of these things are like building up to this huge Iowa State upset. My gut's telling me that Texas is going to win this game by 2 scores. And do I want that to happen? Not necessarily. But my gut's telling me that Texas is going to cover in this one. And I want to be wrong, so I'm going to be watching this game. But just know that my gut's telling me that Texas is going to cover that 7.5. Which means that they're going to go to the Big 12 championship, and that means they're probably going to win the Big 12 championship, which means they're probably going to go to the college football playoff in their last year as a Big 12 team. Hey, shout out. We're going to get that money as a Big 12 school. TCU's going to get some of that college football playoff money for the second year in a row. But it's going to come because I think Texas is going to get the job done on Saturday night and kind of just take it from there. So those are the 3 games that I am keeping an eye on this week: Utah, Arizona, SMU, Memphis, and Texas, Iowa State. Okay. It's mailbag time. We ready to do this? You guys asked some really, really good questions. I'm very excited to get into these. Okay, let's jump right in. GoFrogs FW asks, are all of the incoming freshman men's basketball signees okay with redshirting next year? That seems to be Dixon's MO. I kind of already answered this in the thread, but I'll kind of reiterate what I said and then add on. So I think TCU is beginning to recruit at a level that will allow freshmen to compete for playing time. We saw that this year, right? Jace Posey and Isaiah Manning made it very difficult for the coaching staff to decide to redshirt them. At the end of the day, they had a conversation, and the conversation was, we think you're good enough right now, but we don't know where the minutes are going to come from. Because if you look at TCU's roster, they are incredibly deep this year. They are incredibly deep. They've got 3 big men. They've got 2 or 3, 4 if you count. So think about, all right, let's break it down by this way. Hassan Mustafa, Xavier Cork, Ernest Uday Jr. 3 centers right there. Talk about power forward. You've got guys that can rotate in. You've got Jacoby Coles. You've got Emmanuel Miller. You've got Micah Peavy that can play that role at times as well. You want to talk about, then that's kind of where the 3-4 role, which is pretty similar, that's where Isaiah Manning would play. So you got 3 guys kind of rolling in that spot already. The 3, again, you've got E-Man, you've got Micah, really kind of locking that spot down. Those are where most of those minutes are going to come from. E-Man is the starting 3 this year, right? And he's getting about 28, 30 minutes a game. At the 2, you've got Micah as the starter there. You've got either Avery Anderson or Trey Tennyson kind of rotating into that 2 spot at times. So, again, 3 bodies there that are playing that 2 position a lot. And then at the 1, you've got Jameer as the starter, and you've got Trey Tennyson and Avery Anderson rotating into that spot a lot. So there's just not a lot of minutes for Posey or Manning to find this season. So the question was, do we want to waste a year of their eligibility when they're maybe going to get 5 minutes a game. I know that those two guys are okay with that. They're much more okay with that than the freshman that was on the roster last year. And that's why he's not here anymore. And so I don't know that this is necessarily a signal that they're going to continue redshirting freshmen, but just know that they're recruiting at a level where that may not be the case moving forward. Plus, you lose a lot of guys off of this roster. A lot of guys. There's a reason they signed 4 players to this recruiting class and not just 2 like they did last year. And so I think there's a real chance that 1 or 2 of those freshmen could see some playing time next year. Make no mistake about it, this could very well be Jace Posey's team next year. This could very well be Jace Posey's team next year. He is that good. And I think a year of getting stronger, of learning the college game, of understanding the physicality of the game will do him a world of good, because this could very well be Jace Posey's team next year. If you'll notice, they signed 1 point guard in Ashton Simmons. They signed a lot of big bodies outside of that. Malik Diallo is 6'10". David Punch is 6'7". Michael Robinson is 6'6", right? So you've got a lot of those wings. You got the wings in center, a point guard. You got a point guard on the roster for next year in Posey. You've got another wing in Isaiah Manning. So you portal maybe a shooter and another big man, because you're probably going to have Mostafa back. I think he's got another year after this. You're going to probably have Uday back another year after this. So maybe portal a wing and a shooter, and you've got a younger roster, but one that's in pretty good shape going into 2024. So I don't know that they're all going to redshirt next year because of the talent that TCU is recruiting out of the high school ranks these days. TRF51 says, since I know everything already, I don't have any questions. Hell yeah, let me get some of that limitless knowledge, TR. Appreciate you. Manticos, heard our Big Ten hopes are dashed. That's it. Comments. So I saw Gorf's post the other day, and his source has been really spot on recently. I think it's important to note, though, that a word he used was tabled, which is not a no, right? I think that, and I'll be honest, I haven't checked in with people lately to really kind of get a ton of new information because the season's been going on, and normally not a lot of stuff happens. We saw like a little burst of energy from Florida State and some of the ACC schools there back in early October, but normally stuff doesn't happen during the season. And I don't think that there was anything that was going to be imminent this fall, right? Now, I also don't think that one bad season dashes all hopes. I don't think that anything that TCU has done this year has lessened their profile. But sometimes, doing due diligence means that you're having conversations with certain people at one point, and then you're having conversations with other people at another point. I don't necessarily think that that's an indicator of anything overly negative or disheartening, right? Because let's be honest here, this was nothing that was going to be imminent anyways. If an offer came or anything like that, there was nothing that was suggesting that this was going to come down quickly. Nothing. And that's all. Just if we're doing like what I know and what I think categories, this is all kind of what I think. And what I think is that TCU is still in really good shape, right? TCU has one of the 4 protected rivalries in the Big 12. And that was because TCU pushed to have one of these protected rivalries. It was that important. TCU is set up in a way that should lead them to have a lot of success in a lot of different sports moving forward, including football. The results haven't borne out that way this year, but they're still set up really, really well in the long run. And that's just kind of where we've got to exist right now. No news isn't necessarily good news. No news is not necessarily bad news. It's just no news. So let's just live in the moment a little bit. Embrace the moment and hope to God that TCU beats Baylor on Saturday. The Voyager 11. Question 1, who on this team should we be asking about but aren't? i.e., who is this coaching staff really excited about / impressed with that we aren't talking about? I think Jamel Johnson is one at safety that is really, really exciting. This coaching staff right now, I think they're very excited about him. I think they're very excited about Ben Taylor Whitfield. He got kind of thrown in to an unfavorable situation at times this year along the offensive line, but I think with some time to develop, he's going to be an incredible offensive lineman here at TCU. Those are two guys that I think we should really pay attention to. Jamel Johnson and Ben Taylor Whitfield. I think they're going to be excellent football players for TCU for a long, long time. Question 2, who could GP realistically coach for? Would he be open to DC positions? All right, I'm going to start with the second part of that question. I'm going to start with something that I know, and then I'm going to go into something that I think. First, what I know. I know that Gary Patterson had opportunities to be a defensive coordinator when he left TCU. He had multiple opportunities, multiple Power 5 schools who wanted him to be their defensive coordinator. One is in the Big Ten. One is on the West Coast. Both of these schools wanted him as their DC. It did not seem at that time as if Gary was interested in being a defensive coordinator. And I get that, right? You just were a head coach for 20 years. Going back and working for someone else seems like it might not be the thing you really want to do. He was in his early 60s. He's still in his early 60s at this point. Instead, he chose to do the analyst route down at Texas for a year. Got that experience under his belt, kind of got the bad taste from how things ended at TCU out of his mouth. Now, I think DC's off the table. I think he's going to be able to be a head coach somewhere. So going into the first part of this question, who could GP realistically coach for? I think it's important to understand where he is in life and what schools might be looking for the next few years of their program. I think New Mexico would be an excellent fit. I think San Diego State would be an excellent fit for Gary Patterson. Both of those schools are coming off of coaches who, Brady Hoke retired. New Mexico's had some controversy. I think Gary Patterson could go into either of those situations and immediately improve the standing of those programs. I also think that there's a benefit to Gary moving to the G5 versus trying to get another Power 5 gig. And I think Arkansas maybe will have a conversation with Gary. I don't think that would be out of the realm of possibility. UCLA might call Gary and have a conversation. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility either. But I think with New Mexico or San Diego State, what that provides Patterson the opportunity to do, it's a couple of different things. First of all, the G5 level, especially at those schools, NIL isn't as big of a deal. Right? And we know that he had issues with NIL when he was finishing up his time at TCU as that stuff was getting rolling. I think there's an opportunity for him to maybe come around on NIL a little bit. But at New Mexico specifically, that's not going to be as big of a challenge for you as it might be at a P5 school. San Diego State, you're probably getting into some NIL territory there. But at New Mexico, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. With the transfer portal the way it is now, what Gary Patterson would be able to do at a New Mexico or a San Diego State would be to bring in those players who maybe the first situation didn't work out for whatever reason. Maybe it was they struggled at the Power 5 level, they didn't jive with the coach, whatever it might have been. Gary Patterson can be that G5 refuge for players who struggled at option 1. And they can come in, reset, get really, really, really good coaching, right? Because Gary Patterson is an extremely good football coach, and they can maybe start to turn their career around a little bit. New Mexico and San Diego State both would be excellent opportunities for Gary to avoid some of the NIL challenges that maybe he doesn't want to deal with and still be able to portal incredibly well and develop a program. I think he'd be able to turn both of those things around really, really quickly. Because there is no doubt about it, Gary Patterson is still a very good football coach. And I think that the time off has allowed him to maybe come around on some of the things that he saw as obstacles at the end of his time at TCU. He might be able to leverage those into opportunities now back at the G5 level. So that's my answer to that. A lot of that is based on conversations that I've had with people who feel really good about what could happen next for Gary Patterson. So keep an eye on the Lobos, man. Keep an eye on the Lobos. Question number 3 from the Voyager 11. Who will be the Razorbacks head coach next season? I kind of mentioned, I think that there has been some conversation in Arkansas circles about Gary Patterson. I don't know how far down the road that's going to go. I don't think he's going to end up getting that job. Another name that I've heard is Rhett Lashley. I would be pretty surprised, because Arkansas has done the whole go to the SMU and get a coach route before, but Rhett Lashley's from the state, played at Arkansas. There's a connection there. I don't know who Arkansas can bring in that will immediately turn the program back around. I thought Sam Pittman's first couple of years were awesome. I think maybe even keeping him on in some kind of ambassador role would be great. But they got to get someone in there. They got to get someone in there who understands Arkansas's place in the SEC. That it is, last episode I talked about TCU being on a 4-year development cycle. Arkansas is the same kind of school, right? You're not going to get the 5-star talent that just replenishes you every year over year. You've got to have someone who can develop, create an opportunity to get into a good development cycle rhythm, play the portal to supplement some needs so that maybe that cycle takes 2 years or 3 years instead of 4. And I think that they need a head coach that has already had head coaching experience. I don't think they need to go with the first-time head coach route again. That's not going to work out for you in the SEC. It's just not. Ultimate Frog, rate Cavinder on a scale of 1 to 10, but not the crazy scale where each tier is disproportionate. Thanks. So I'm going to assume that this is a Hooper scale, and I'm going to give her an 8.5. She is a baller. Like I said earlier, she led Miami in points, assists, and minutes. She shot 40% from 3. She's, for her career, 3 years at Fresno State and a year at Miami, she's averaged 16.7 points a game, 7.2 rebounds a game, 3.8 assists per game. She's a baller. She's got 2,000 career points at the college level. This is a girl who can score. She facilitates incredibly well. She crashes the boards. This is a hooper that TCU is getting. I'm very excited about Cavinder coming and being a part of this program next year. I think that she's going to help take women's basketball at TCU to a level that it hasn't seen yet, that we're starting to get a glimpse of early on this season. Very, very, very excited about that. McFrog asks the eternal question, why? And I will respond with, because. That's why. Schaff's Dream. I don't like either the Revivalry or Bluebonnet Battle. Was there anything else considered? So I had someone hit me in the DMs the other day, which happens from time to time. I'm always excited for people to slide into the DMs and give me unsolicited info. So if you feel like you have unsolicited info, hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open. And this person requested anonymity, so we're gonna offer that to them because I'm not a jerk. But this was a person who had intimate knowledge of TCU student government, not currently, but previously and still recently. And the information that I learned was that TCU and Baylor have been trying to figure something out like this for a while. They've gone back and forth quite a bit. And like we've seen both sides of this conversation talking about this week, it seems like they want to push the rejection of the Revivalry as a rivalry name off on the other school for some sort of religious reason, right? TCU's not very religious, and so they didn't want the religious connotation. Baylor wanted something that was more like like respectful and PC and all this other kind of stuff. So the two fan bases have been going back and forth on that. I know that there were other trophies that were suggested by TCU. I know that there were other rivalry names that were suggested by TCU. But it really seemed like everything was that even had a hint of religious connotation was a non-starter for Baylor. One of the trophies that I was told was suggested was an old school fire extinguisher, which is hilarious. Let's just be completely honest. That would be funny as heck. But it's the Bluebonnet Battle, and the trophy is massive, and it was at the presser on Tuesday. It's a shield. And look, do I think it's the greatest trophy in the world? No. Do I think it's the greatest rivalry name in the world? No. I think TCU and Baylor, that rivalry is deserving of something really cool. I thought the Revivalry was awesome. I think a trophy around that name would be really, really cool too. I also think that people's hot takes about student government are a little ridiculous, right? Like, these are groups of students who want to leave their mark on a long-standing rivalry. That's okay, right? Like, legacy is important, and starting to think about it at a young age isn't necessarily bad. And they worked really hard on this for a long time. So yeah, they're going to like put the student government logos on the trophy and all this other stuff. I don't like all of the heat that the SGA folks on both sides of the aisle are getting from all of this. I think it's a little much to be getting in the comments of the Baylor student presidents, Instagram posts, and so maybe we just need to calm down a little bit, right? Call it what you want. If you want to call it the Revivalry, call it the Revivalry. The Texas and OU fans still call it the Red River Shootout, right? Like, you don't have to call it something just because it's got an official name, right? The Bits of Broken Chairs rivalry between, I think it's Minnesota and Iowa, like that was fan-led. There was never any formality around that. And, you can have fun with the rivalry and not be beholden to its official title. So I call it what you want. Just call it TCU-Baylor if that's what you want to do. Don't go out of your way to grief some SGA folks just because you don't like what they decided. That's just unnecessary, I think. They're students, just like you used to be, just like the student athletes are. They're students. They're just trying to do something that they think is cool, and I'm not going to fault them for that. Moving right along. I think we only got one or two left. Army Frog fan suggests Battle for I-35, which I also really like. I think there could have been a really cool I-35 trophy every year between Texas, Baylor, and TCU, where, throw Oklahoma in the mix, throw, I guess, Kansas in the mix. They're kind of close to 35. All of the Big 12 schools just right on that 35 corridor have a little trophy for whoever wins that overall battle every year. Would be kind of cool. Raw Frog says, a bit random, but does anyone else think white inside the numbers would look cleaner and better than the silver? I'm assuming this is on the black jersey. And yes, mainly because when they've got the silver numbers and I'm sitting in the press, I can't see. I'm old man eyes. I can't see the numbers. And so, yeah, I would love to see something that would allow me to say, is that a 0 or an 8? Am I looking at Jamel Johnson or Nook Bradford? Is that Bud Clark? I don't know, because I can't tell what the number is, right? I can't tell who's the running back, or I can't tell if it's Marcel Brooks or Shad Banks, because it's a 9 or a 0, and it's all just a silver blur. Yeah, absolutely change the numbers. Frog, I'm going to save your question for last. Why does El Nino Jimenez asks, why does the TCU campus store make it difficult to order merch from? This is the second time I've had an item canceled on me. First the CFP jacket and now the red eye hoodie. I had the red eye hoodie canceled too, and I have a platform. I'm going to use it. TCU campus store, get your stuff together. That is stupid. I ordered a hoodie, the new red eye hoodie, like 30 minutes after the link came out, and 5 hours later I'm getting an email saying my order is canceled because you're out. What? You got to have a better mechanism in place than that. That is absurd. That is hilarious. I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to plug both Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel again to say, I've never had an order canceled from either of those places. They're not going to cancel an order on you. They're going to take your money. You're going to get an excellent high quality product back in exchange. So if you want a hoodie, you didn't get the red eye hoodie. By the way, Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods has some red eye quality stuff right now. I'm copping that hat. As soon as I hop off of this and get this edited, I'm ordering the red eye logo on a hat from Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods. So let's go ahead and be matching buddies on that, El Nino. Let's grab those hats together. But yeah, it's really disappointing that TCU is going to hype something up like that and then cancel a bunch of people's orders because they mismanage things. It's just annoying. Bisquick Frog asks, what changes have occurred in the athletics department that have resulted in so much success across sports? This is a great question. I think that the bones have been there for a really long time for TCU to be successful across all athletics and not just in the big three, not just at football. I think what shifted things, and we started to see some of this when Del Conte was still the athletic director, but I think what Jeremiah Donati has done an incredible job of as TCU's AD is making sure that the financial commitment matches the verbal commitment, right? And what I mean by that is every athletic director is going to come out and say that all of our sports are important, all of our athletics matter. It's not just about football. We want to be successful across the board. And they give you that spiel, right? We hear that from every athletics department. What Jeremiah Donati has done is made sure that the financial investment in those other sports matches the verbal commitment that he has made to them. And so what I mean by that is take beach volleyball for an example. We are talking about a beach volleyball program that is landlocked to the extreme, when usually every beach volleyball program that has national success is coastal, right? It's California or it's Florida. In order to be the best in a sport like that, you have to compete against the best in a sport like that. And for a TCU team, that means you're flying a lot. And Donati has committed to making sure that beach volleyball gets out to California. They get out to Florida. They go to Hawaii for a tournament, right? That costs so much money for a sport that doesn't necessarily generate the same kind of revenue that it might cost to send them to those places. But he's made that commitment. And what have we seen? Beach volleyball's been a top 3 program in the country for the last 5 years now under Hector Gutierrez. That's what I'm talking about. And I think across sports, that is what has made TCU successful. The financial investment in soccer, the financial investment in volleyball, bringing in Jason Williams and committing to making that program better, bringing in Mark Campbell, committing to making women's basketball good again, committing to Jamie Dixon, committing to Kirk Sarlos, committing to Sonny Dykes, and making sure that the big 3 are set up well for the future, right? The financial investment that TCU Athletics has made under Jeremiah Donati across the board is the reason for the success we've been seeing. The commitment to rifle that has been a dominant program in its sport for a decade plus, right? They have done such a great job. And we're starting to see some of the stuff too, right? Like with swimming and diving, equestrian has been on top for so long now. It's because the financial investment has backed up the verbal commitment. That is why we're seeing TCU Athletics have the success across the board that it is having. And that is a testament directly to the work that Jeremiah Donati is doing to making sure that no program gets left behind. He has high expectations for every program. He makes those expectations extraordinarily clear to the leaders of each program, to each of those head coaches, and then he backs them up with the money they need, with the support that they need to get that job done well. It's really not that hard to, the equation is pretty simple, but sometimes you just got to have the finances to make it happen. And fortunately for TCU, they're in a really good financial spot. And Jeremiah Donati has been able to balance that incredibly well. So all of that credit goes straight to the AD. That's my opinion, right? He runs that ship incredibly well. I know that there have been some frustrations about some assistants and in football, like whatever it might be. There are some frustrations, and athletic directors are always going to catch some heat. But ultimately, I think if you're given Jeremiah a report card, it's A's. It's A's. That's what it is. And maybe it's an A- here, but it's A's. He has done an extraordinary job with TCU Athletics. An extraordinary job. There's a reason that USC was calling him, right? Like, people across the country are recognizing the kind of job Jeremiah Donati is doing, and TCU fans should appreciate that, and maybe even verbalize that to him. Send him an email, tell him how good of a job you think he's doing, because I think he's done an excellent job. Senior Frog, when out, are we going to Shreveport? If not, then where? Hey, it might be the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas. Yep. All right, moving on. Ludacliff asks, Onion or Bart? The people demand to know where you stand. Also, don't even remotely follow women's basketball yet. What are our realistic expectations for them? All right. I got on Twitter yesterday afternoon. I've been head down working for a while. I'm take a 5-minute break. See what's going on in the Twitter sphere. And it's just a bunch of pictures of onions and Bart Simpson. And I have no idea what's going on. Landry Burdine asked, what's going on? I have no idea what's going on. Someone explain. Am I a Bart or am I an onion? Because I have no idea. I'm old. That's what I know. And new young people trends escape me. And at this point in my life, I'm just going to have to accept that. 37 years old. It's just done for me. I don't understand the popular things anymore. I'm going to go have a bourbon and cry about it later. But someone tell me, am I an onion? Am I a Bart? I'm going to have some help on this one. Women's basketball realistic expectations. I think I said this on the board last week. I think somewhere in the middle third of the conference is pretty realistic, right? They're not going to go 1-17 this year, like they did last year in conference. They're going to be better than that. They have much more talent than that. They're going to be a tougher out than that. I don't know that in 1 year you can turn things around with how bad the program has been. I could be proven wrong, but right now I think realistic expectations are to say, yeah, in a 14-team conference, I think they'll finish somewhere between like 5 and 8, 5 and 7. No, 5 and 9, sorry. That kind of middle third of the conference, they'll finish somewhere 5th to 9th, and I think that will be a perfectly acceptable improvement over what this team was a year ago. With the understanding that next year, now that you give Campbell a full cycle, not only to hit the portal, but he's building some really good relationships with some juniors in high school right now. So next year's high school class, we can start to see some talent that's going to come in and develop. And he's got. I talked with him earlier this week. He's got a plan, folks. I mentioned it earlier. I'm writing up a little bit about him. He's got a vision for this thing. He's got a plan to make it work long term. So if you're not a stockholder in women's basketball yet, I would get on that really quickly. And it looks like that was the last question. So thanks, Luda, for leading us out. I still got to get to Frog's question, which means that I've got to vamp a little bit while I find the thread that it was in. Oh, baby. Let's see. It was a PFF thread. We're scrolling. This is really good podcasting right now. I'm doing an excellent job. Everyone tell me, if you're watching on YouTube, tell me about the great job that I am doing. Oh, man. This is why we do the mailbag thread, so that you don't have to go through and scroll like this. Here we go. Has anyone progressed from this year from last year in terms of performance on PFF? Let me go to PFF and pull that up as well. I think that it's going to be few and far between. I'll tell you that. As my PFF takes a million years to load, let's scroll down to TCU. Here we are. By player. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to go to the game report for Texas. And we're going to start by looking at Savion Williams, because I think he's going to see some improvement here. Yeah. So PFF grade, Savion Williams, 2022. He had a total offensive grade of 58.9, a passing grade of 58.7, a pass blocking grade of 60.7. 2023, his offensive grade is 73.7. So a significant jump. We'll call that the lack of QJ effect, plus a really, really good game against Texas. He's had a good 4 games in a row. 74.3 grade in passing. So he's a guy that's improved. He's got a COVID year left. I think that if they try to bring him back, that's going to be a huge thing from them. Frankly, there are not a ton of other guys from the offensive side of the ball that are back, right? Brandon Coleman's grades are way down from last year. Andrew Coker's grades, let's go to him. Let's see. About the same as last year, honestly. 69.8 offensive grade last year, 65.3 this year. His pass blocking grade is actually up to 76.4 from 71.5. Run blocking grade, way down. 56.8 this year, 69.8 last year. So up in the pass blocking game, down in the run blocking game, which is part of what we've seen, I think, especially since Hoover's been in. We've seen them pass block pretty well, but the run blocking for Imani has gone down pretty significantly. Another guy we can look at, Jared Wiley. His offensive numbers are pretty significantly down, which I think is interesting considering how much we were told this offseason by coaches that the tight ends were going to be really involved. And we have seen him be really involved, but his offensive grade is down to a 61.7. It was a 76.8 last year. Pass catching grade is 65.8, down from 81.4 last year. Blocking grade is up in pass. Blocking grade in run is down. So really, just on the offensive side, Savion seems to be the only guy that has seen significant playing time, whose numbers have gone up. We can take a look at John Lands as well. He played mostly at right guard, kind of swapped with Wes Harris last year. Numbers are down across the board for him. Actually, no, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. His numbers are up across the board. His total offensive grade is 64.1, up from 61.9. His pass blocking grade is 66.1, up from 57.3. And his run blocking grade is up from 65.5 from 61.1. So he's done a better job this year, even though he's playing more and at a different position than he was a year ago. So that's something of note, right? Because he's caught a lot of heat from folks, and rightfully so, because there have been moments where he's struggled. But overall, he's improved year over year for TCU. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball a little bit. Let's look at Abe Kamara. I think he's going to be a fun one to look at if his season grades load. Yes, Abe Kamara, last year, 2022, 71.9 overall defensive grade. This year, that's a 79.9. His run defense is up to 81.2 from 80.8. His tackling grade is up to 74.5, up from 57.8. And his coverage grade is up to 79.2, up from 68.6. Abe Kamara has improved dramatically this year. Dramatically. He has been one of the best secondary players for TCU this season, without a doubt. Along the defensive line, let's take a look at Tymon Mitchell. He's another guy who I think has had a pretty decent year, albeit quiet, because TCU's front has been under some heat. Why aren't his season grades loading? Please load. What are we doing? What are we doing here, PFF? Come on now. Let's hit refresh. Season grade still not loading. I'll say this, though, looking at his game by game for Tymon, his tackling grade has been in the 70s for every week except one, and the one was Kansas State, and nobody had a good game against Kansas State. Nobody did. So he's been consistently good at tackling. His run defense numbers have been up and down this year. His pass rush defense have been pretty consistently in the high 50s, low 60s, so you want to see that number maybe get a little bit higher. But ultimately, at least you know what you're getting. Some of these other guys, you get great performances one week and really rough performances the next week. Consistency is really important. It's something that Sonny Dykes has been talking about a lot, and Tymon Mitchell is giving you a consistent performance this year. Another guy that I think has had a pretty interesting season. Why aren't the season grades loading? Come on, PFF, you're letting me down. You're letting me down. Is my internet crapping out right now? Like, what is going on here? Well, if none of these grades are gonna show up, and I know that Frog's question was specifically about guys that have improved, so I'm trying to scroll through and find some of them. Another guy who has kind of stayed steady is Mark Perry. Defensive grade's basically the same. Run defense grade is the same. Coverage grade is the same. Tackling grade is down, 61.5 from 71 last year. So not as great a tackling year for Perry, but other than that, he's been pretty consistent. Let's go back to Shad now and see if the grades will load. No, it's just Shad. PFF hates Shad. That's dumb. Okay, well, if it's not going to load, that's pretty much all I can do for you. Let's look at Dom Williams. See if his stuff will load. That'll be the one we end on. Yep. Dom Williams. His defensive grade is down half a point, 69.5 from 70, but his run defense grade is up 74.1 from 71.2. His tackling grade is up 78.3 to 70.4. His pass rush grade is up 63 to 61 from 61.5. The reason that his overall defensive grade has gone down is because his coverage grade has gone down from 77.1 last year to 57.8 last year. So this is a good example of how we need to look at PFF grades. The overall grade can be impacted by silly things that don't really matter. And in this case, Dom Williams' overall grade is impacted so much by his coverage grade, but he's a nose tackle, right? And so when you look at his grades and you say, all right, run defense is up, tackling is up, pass rush is up across the board. All right, so Dom Williams is building on what was a really good freshman year. His sophomore year has taken a step forward, and that's incredibly heartening. And so now we're saying, okay, from here to junior year, let's make the big leap. Let's make the big leap. Let's be a dominant force on the interior defensive line. Maybe that will help this defense take a step forward in 2024. So that's what we're going to end on is the good news that Dom Williams has taken a step forward according to PFF. Thank you to everybody who has listened. Again, thanks to Evan and Matt over at Between Two Bears for hopping on with Melissa and previewing TCU-Baylor. We will be back. I'm committing to it. We will be back to a recap episode this weekend. That'll be out on Monday of next week. It's an early week next week. Thanksgiving is coming up, so we're going to try and do a mailbag episode a little bit earlier in the week, probably on Wednesday instead of Thursday, to get that thing out ahead of the holidays. So look for all of that. Check out the TCU-Baylor game, 2:30 ESPN+, and we will talk to you next time. Go Frogs.